Imagine a country where over 90% of the land is nothing but scorching, lifeless desert. No rivers, no rain, no crops. Just endless burning sand under a sun that pushes temperatures past 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Now picture that same country with clean water flowing from every tap, green fields growing food in the middle of that desert, and enormous circular farms visible from space. That is not fiction, that is Libya. And the story of how this happened is one of the most remarkable engineering achievements in the history of human civilization. Welcome to Strategic Dynamics Edge. If this is your first time here, you have found the right channel. We cover forgotten projects, impossible decisions, and engineering feats that quietly changed entire civilizations. Hit subscribe right now and tap the bell so you never miss a video, because what we are about to walk you through today is the kind of story that stops you cold and makes you rethink what humans are truly capable of building. Today, we are talking about the Great Man-Made River, a project so enormous and so unlike anything ever attempted before that it has been called one of the greatest engineering achievements in recorded history. The man who commissioned it called it the eighth wonder of the world. When you hear the full story, you will understand why. But first, you need to understand the problem it was built to solve. Because without understanding how desperate the situation truly was, you cannot appreciate how extraordinary this solution actually is. Libya is a large country in North Africa along the Mediterranean coast. More than 90% of its land is covered by the Sahara Desert and is essentially uninhabitable. There are no permanent surface rivers anywhere in the country. Rainfall is almost non-existent, and in some regions, years pass without a single drop. The entire population of approximately 6 to 7 million people has historically been forced to cluster along a narrow northern coastal strip, simply because that was the only place where any usable water could be found. But even that coastal water was slowly failing. For generations, Libyans drilled wells along the coastline and drew fresh water from shallow underground layers near the sea. As population grew and demand rose, those coastal aquifers began giving out. When you drain a coastal aquifer too aggressively, salt water from the sea seeps in to replace the fresh water. The water turns brackish, then undrinkable. That process was already beginning. Libya was drifting toward a genuine water crisis with no obvious way out, or so it appeared. In the 1950s, oil prospectors were drilling deep into the southern Libyan desert near a remote oasis called Kufra. They were looking for petroleum. What they found instead was something far more unexpected. Deep beneath the desert floor, locked inside ancient layers of porous sandstone, was fresh water. Not a small pool, something far bigger than anyone had imagined finding in one of the driest places on Earth. Further investigation revealed that this was just one corner of a system scientists would later call the Nubian Sandstone Aquifer. This is the largest known underground freshwater reservoir on Earth. It stretches beneath 4 countries simultaneously, covering parts of Libya, Egypt, Chad, and Sudan. Its surface area spans more than 2 million square kilometers. The estimated volume of water stored inside is approximately 150,000 cubic kilometers. That is a quantity of fresh water so large, it dwarfs what most surface rivers and lakes in the entire region hold combined. Now the obvious question: how did that much fresh water end up beneath one of the driest deserts on Earth? The answer takes us back thousands of years, and it is one of the most fascinating parts of this story. The Sahara was not always a desert. Geological and climate research has confirmed that roughly 9,000 to 4,000 years ago, the region experienced what scientists call the African humid period. During that era, rivers flowed across the landscape, lakes filled the valleys, and grasslands and forests spread across areas that are now pure sand. Elephants, giraffes, hippopotamuses, and crocodiles lived here. Human communities raised livestock, fished in rivers, and left behind rock paintings on desert surfaces that survive to this day. Those paintings show people swimming, cattle standing near water, and boats crossing open lakes. They are direct proof that this entire region was once alive in a way it no longer is. During those thousands of wet years, rainwater slowly soaked into the ground, filtered through rock and sediment, and accumulated in the deep sandstone formations below. Then, roughly 5,000 years ago, the climate shifted. The rains stopped. Vegetation died. Rivers and lakes dried up. The green Sahara faded away, and the desert we know today was born. But all the water that had accumulated underground during those wet millennia stayed exactly where it was, sealed inside the sandstone, undisturbed, preserved for tens of thousands of years. Scientists call this fossil water, using the same logic as fossil fuels. Just as coal and oil are preserved remnants of ancient eras, this water is the preserved remnant of a climate that no longer exists. Modern rainfall in the Sahara does not replenish this aquifer in any meaningful way. This is a one-time resource, and that fact becomes critically important later in this story. Now we arrive at the man who decided to use that ancient water to change his country. In 1969, a young military officer named Muammar Gaddafi came to power in Libya through a swift coup. He would rule for 42 years. By any honest assessment, Gaddafi was an extremely controversial leader whose human rights record and international behavior were widely condemned. We are not presenting this video as a defense of his leadership. We are here to examine one specific engineering project on its own merits, clearly and honestly. Gaddafi had a vision. He wanted Libya to grow its own food, supply its own water, and reduce its dependence on foreign powers. The key to that vision was the fossil water sitting beneath the southern desert. He wanted to reach down into that underground reservoir, pull the water up to the surface, and move it 1,500 kilometers across the desert to the populated cities on the northern coast. The scale of the idea was breathtaking. The logistics were nearly incomprehensible, and yet he ordered it done. Serious planning began in the 1970s. A major feasibility study was completed in 1974. Engineers spent years working through every dimension of the challenge. How deep do you drill? What pumping technology can sustain the required output? How do you move millions of cubic meters of water across 1,500 kilometers of open desert without significant loss? How do you build distribution infrastructure to serve cities once the water arrives? Construction officially began in 1984. The project was organized into 5 major phases, each extending water access to different regions in sequence. This was not a short-term project. It was a generational undertaking, and everyone involved knew it. Around 1,300 wells were drilled into the desert floor above the Nubian aquifer, some reaching depths of 600 meters below the surface. Powerful pumps installed in each well pull water up and release it into the transport system. Once at the surface, the water needed to travel north through a network of massive concrete pipes. Each pipe has a diameter of 4 meters, large enough for a full-sized bus to drive through. Each pipe section weighed hundreds of tons. The total length of the pipe network stretched to approximately 4,000 kilometers. Because pipes of this size cannot be manufactured elsewhere and transported across a desert, Libya built its own pipe factories directly along the pipeline route, right there in the middle of the Sahara. Purpose-built heavy transport vehicles moved each completed section to wherever construction crews were working. Those crews worked in temperatures regularly exceeding 120 degrees Fahrenheit, living in temporary settlements built solely to support the project, with food and supplies constantly brought in from outside. The pipes were buried in trenches cut through the desert floor and then covered back over with sand, protecting them from extreme heat and preventing evaporation during the long journey north. That is why it is called an underground river. The water flows completely out of sight, hidden beneath the desert for its entire journey. The first water reached Benghazi in 1991. Water that had rested untouched beneath the Sahara for tens of thousands of years was now flowing from kitchen taps in Libyan homes. The system today moves approximately 2.5 million cubic meters of water every single day, supplying drinking water and agricultural irrigation to the majority of Libya's population. Satellite images show the result clearly. Thousands of perfect green circles scattered across the yellow desert, each one an irrigated farm field producing wheat, barley, corn, vegetables, and fruit on land that had been dead sand for centuries. The project had cost over $25 billion. What makes this remarkable is that Libya funded every dollar of it independently without a single international loan. No World Bank financing, no debt to foreign governments. Every payment came from Libya's own oil revenues. Companies from many countries participated in construction, but Libya wrote every check itself. Gaddafi viewed external debt as a form of dependency he refused to accept, and he directed the country's oil income toward this project instead. Now we need to talk honestly about the part of this story that carries the most weight. Fossil water is not being replenished. Every cubic meter pumped out of the Nubian aquifer is gone permanently. The climate that filled that reservoir over thousands of years no longer exists. Modern Sahara rainfall does not refill it. This is a finite resource with no renewal mechanism. Libyan officials have historically claimed the aquifer holds enough water to last many centuries. Independent scientific estimates are more cautious. Depending on extraction rates, some researchers estimate economically accessible supplies could become critically depleted within 60 to 100 years under heavy use, with more optimistic projections suggesting around 1,000 years under careful management. The numbers are debated, but the core fact is not. There is a limit. When it is reached, it will not recover on any timescale meaningful to the people living there. Millions of people have gained access to clean water and food production that would otherwise have been impossible. That is a real, concrete benefit. But future generations may inherit infrastructure that no longer functions, and a water crisis more severe than the one this project was built to solve. There is no clean answer here. It is a genuinely hard problem where the same facts can lead honest people to different conclusions. In 2011, Libya descended into civil war. Gaddafi was overthrown and killed. The country fragmented into competing factions, a condition of instability that has continued to the present day. Sections of the pipeline were damaged during fighting. The factories producing replacement pipes were struck during military operations. The fifth and final phase of the project was never completed. Remarkably, even during active conflict, most armed groups recognized the water system as too critical to deliberately destroy. Everyone understood that catastrophic failure of the great man-made river would mean millions of civilians losing access to drinking water. International organizations, including UNESCO, worked with Libyan engineers to keep the system running through the instability. The Great Man-Made River continues to operate today. Without it, modern Libya as it exists would simply not be possible. So what do we take from all of this? This project is simultaneously one of humanity's greatest engineering achievements and one of the most honest case studies in the complicated relationship between human ambition and natural limits. People reached 600 meters down through rock and sand, pulled up water sitting there since before the Egyptian pyramids existed, and used it to grow food and sustain life in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. That is extraordinary. But it also raises a question that is not unique to Libya. When we extract a resource that took tens of thousands of years to accumulate and exhaust it within a human lifetime, we are making a decision on behalf of everyone who comes after us. We are borrowing something we can never repay. That question, how we use the finite gifts of this planet and what we owe to future generations, is one of the defining challenges of our time. If this story gave you something to think about, do 3 things right now. Like this video. Leave a comment telling me what surprised you most about this project, and share it with someone who would never expect a story like this to exist. If you're not subscribed yet, click that button now because more stories like this are coming. The next time you look at a map and see the Sahara stretching across northern Africa, remember what is underneath it. An ancient ocean of water older than human civilization, moving slowly toward the surface through thousands of kilometers of buried pipe. A river that flows where no river has any right to flow, built by human hands, carrying water from a world that vanished 40,000 years ago. That is the Great Man-Made River, and it will never stop being one of the most astonishing things humanity has ever built. This video is produced strictly for educational and informational purposes. All content is based on publicly available historical records, engineering documentation, and scientific research. Strategic Dynamics Edge does not endorse or support any political figures, governments, or armed groups referenced in this video. Statistics and figures cited reflect published estimates and are presented in good faith for educational discussion.